In the previous video, we ran a compression test so that we could begin to understand what is going on in this engine. We now have an idea of what's going on across each of the cylinders because of the information we're able to get from the spark plugs and also the test itself. We're now going to take this a step further and we're going to do a leak down test. Let's remind ourselves why we're doing this test. Fuel and air mix in the combustion chamber and then are compressed by the piston. This compression is vital for performance. In older cars like ours, this compression can begin to fail when there is wear and tear on valves and cylinder rings and even cylinder walls. Before we begin the test, we need to make sure that the cylinder that we are testing is at top dead center. We need the valves to be closed. We can do this by introducing a screwdriver and placing it into the cylinder. And as we're turning the engine by hand using the crankshaft, the screwdriver will rise to its highest point. This then indicates top dead center. If we miss top dead center, do not turn the engine backwards. Continue to rotate clockwise until you get to the highest point again. In a 4-cylinder engine, cylinders 1 and 4 are at top dead center at the same time, and cylinders 2 and 3 are at top dead center at the same time. In other words, you only have to measure twice. An engine leak down test looks to see how much pressure is lost, not created. So we're going to be introducing pressure into the engine rather than the engine producing the pressure itself. One gauge on the tester measures how much pressure we put into the engine. We're going to be working towards about 100 or so psi. The other indicates how much we're losing, and it's a percentage. We are aiming for 5, maybe 10%. This is then going to tell us the overall state of the engine by looking at each cylinder and what each cylinder is losing. There's no such thing as an engine with 0% loss. What we're looking for is about 5 to 10%. That's about normal. Anything above 10% may then indicate that we're going to have to pull the engine and take a closer look. If you are looking at something above 20%, it's almost guaranteed that you're going to have to do that. Like in a compression test, we also want to be looking at the differences between the cylinders. That should be fairly consistent. A leak down test is also a great way to be able to pinpoint our problems before we do the engine tear down and rebuild. What we're going to do is we're going to use our ears. We're going to listen very carefully. It's a leak down test, so we're going to hear air escaping, air leaking. One place that we must check is the throttle body and intake valves. So it's going to be in this area here. We're going to hear it. Another place that we need to listen carefully is right over here. We will even hear air leaking out of our exhaust. It will also leak around the turbocharger and the exhaust manifold. Another place to look is at our dipstick and our oil filler. The final indicator that we'll be looking for is bubbles in the coolant. This is going to indicate a cracked cylinder head or alternatively a head gasket problem. But it's all about air in the coolant. And so look toward your radiator. With the combined data that we've been able to now get from both the compression test and the leak down test, this engine seems to be in really good shape, and I'm really pleased about that. We have on compression 140, 140, 135 and 140. Leak down, it's even better. 5, 5, 5 and possibly even 3, but we'll go with 5. And so I couldn't be happier with the results of these tests. That's it for this video. We'll see you in the next one.